Merry Christmas. We have an early gift. Now the report of the Iraq Surrender Group has been published and made public. Bush has to act. Something has to happen one way or another. Does Bush go big on Iraq? Does he go long? I know it sounds a bit like the storyboard of a porno, but truly this is a pivotal moment in American history. The irresistible force has met the immovable object, and something has to give. We are told time and again how we must listen to the voice of the international community, the voices of reason, which is another way of saying France, John Murtha, and Nancy Pelosi, of course. But still, the voices of history speak even louder. Because Europeans imagine they are enlightened as opposed to us cowboy hicks in America, we're supposed to heed their wise admonishments to basically appease tyrants. Does this remind anyone of the 1930s, peace in our time? How well did that one work out for you, Jacques? Those who told us not to invade Iraq were not risking their lives enforcing the no-fly zone, but were taking huge sums of money from the greatest bribery scheme of all time, oil for food. While Bush was forcing the hand of the United Nations with the unanimous Resolution 1441, which, by the way, never said do a two-step with these weapons inspectors, rather, come clean now, this is your last chance before we whack you, the French and Russians were using their influence and doing their level best to convince Saddam our threats were hollow, that we would never invade Iraq. Such is diplomacy when your allies are in fact in bed with the enemy. A diplomatic solution to Iraq was ended by the French in late January 2003. France announced it would never support military force ever. The possibility of a diplomatic solution was ended that moment by France, not by the United States. Once the credible threat of force was seemingly taken off the table, Saddam had absolutely no reason whatever to seriously engage in diplomacy. So now in Iraq, we have a Sunni Arab minority pitted against a Shia Arab majority backed by Shia Persians, and Kurds stuck in the middle, and a coalition government supported, at least in part, by a crazy mullah who has a militia apparently bent on civil war. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda is egging on the Sunni minority as best they can, and they're funded by Saudi princes. And if we were to petition the place, like some have suggested, the Turks, who have a despised Kurdish minority of their own, probably won't accept quietly an independent Kurdish state, to say nothing of Iran, which has its own despised Kurdish minority. So it's complicated, isn't it? As the world and the Democrats universally condemn America for invading Iraq, does anyone remember the situation just prior to our invasion? How many troops and planes did we have engaged in bottling up Saddam? How advanced was the cancer of the oil for food corruption by that point? How long would it have taken before we would have had to give up the sanctions and allow Saddam the freedom to resume his weapons programs? Remember those famous 16 words about uranium from West Africa? Joe Wilson's sweet tea-inspired fantasies aside, Iraq was in fact trying to obtain uranium to restart its nuclear program. Here is some non-box thinking for you. Some problems actually have no solution. Had we left Iraq alone 3 years ago, perhaps we would have Saddam Hussein actively competing with Iran for nuclear dominance in the region. Does anyone seriously imagine that would be a better situation than what we have today? Perhaps the best solution is no solution at all. Rather, we might do our best to pit competing forces against one another in the region and hope, to paraphrase Henry Kissinger, both sides lose. The busier they are killing each other, the less time they have to kill us. Just a thought.